Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Lord God, we just come before your throne. We thank you for all the things that you've given us. We thank you for the wonderful gift you gave us upon the cross. The very fact that that gift allows us to stand here and be called Christians, followers of Christ, children of the Most High. Lord, as we come and we gather to commune, to fellowship, Lord, we ask you lead us, guide us, and let us follow your will, your plan, as we desire to reach out into this country and change this world, to change this place, to draw back to you. Lord, we thank you for the wonderful gift you've given us, Father, everything going on in our country right here, right now, Lord. As my mom said before, it's a reprieve, Father. We just thank you for that. We ask you to lift us up, encourage us, and guide us as we work towards bringing your plan, your will to fruition here in this country, in this place which you placed us in. So we ask you to be with us, Lord, guide our hearts, and direct us as we move forward tonight. In the holy and precious name of Jesus, we say, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, sir.
That's okay. Yeah. Thanks. Well, yeah, the pardons. So I've got a book coming out in about 2 weeks, and they talked about me having it done right before Christmas, and I said no, I don't want it coming out before he's done with his term, because he may pardon people that are in the book. So he blew it. Joe Biden blew it, and that's kind of where Trump went the other night. He said he didn't pardon himself. So there's a vast conspiracy that Joe Biden has to cover for. I've written about that in the case to impeach and imprison Joe Biden, and I wrote about that in my next book, which is An Almost Insurmountable Evil. And so he did pardon Fauci. I'm not sure how that holds up, and Fauci plays a big role in the Almost Insurmountable Evil book. But he didn't pardon people like the Vindmans. Vindmans are in that book too. They're in the Almost Insurmountable Evil book. Basically, what they did was they were covering for crimes that Hunter Biden did in Ukraine in 2014 with a company called Metabiota. He and Joe had a kickback scheme. Well, that Metabiota kickback scheme began in December of 2013. And when Joe pardoned Hunter, he only pardoned him up till from 2014 on. So what he did in December 2013 with this Metabiota kickback scheme is, I think, still a viable investigation, still potentially, I'm not a lawyer, but still potentially a viable path to charging him. He got pardoned for the crimes that he was convicted of, and what he convicted of crimes about the gun, is disposing of the gun, breaking the laws there in Wilmington, and then he pled guilty to tax evasion. So he's pardoned for all that. But Joe didn't. He got his brother pardoned. He got his sister pardoned. He got his sister-in-law pardoned. He didn't pardon his grandkids. Some of those kids there's a huge conspiracy of who knew what when, And that's what I talked about in the Case to Impeach and Imprison book. Was I witnessed Joe Biden committing a crime with Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan didn't get pardoned. So the pardons are going to come back and haunt the Democratic Party. And they try to be cute with them. It didn't work. It's not going to work. Nope. Well, I think Joe Biden is just, he's an egotistical, evil man. And he just didn't want to do more than he could have. And so, he was going to keep track of his family, protect them. He didn't do a good job of really protecting Hunter. And ultimately, he didn't really protect himself. I mean, I just don't think he's not a smart guy about some things. Some things he's very devious. But, overall, not a smart guy. So he let a lot of stuff fell through the cracks in the pardon process. And then he came out and he did the family pardons of Trump when Trump was delivering his inauguration event, his speech. So Trump got personally offended by that. And I called that in a X post. I posted something on X, 5 days ago saying, even before 5 days before the inauguration, I said, watch Joe Biden. He's going to do a bunch of pardons right at the last minute to steal Trump's thunder. And that's what he did. And Trump came out and he did his pardons. And the Democrats are kind of stuck. The Democrat Party is sitting back and they're in kind of shock. They're in shock right now. And so it's time to move on them. They're stunned and it's time to move on them. So one of the things that we're moving on is I got books coming out that are pretty significant, and there's a lot of other things. Trump is moving on them pretty hard. Well, I think Trump's going to look at the ones that are important to him. And Kash Patel he laid out a real good process for what's going to happen in his book, Government, what's it called? Government, I can't remember the name, Government Criminals or something like that. But he wrote a great book and I read it. And so he's got it laid out. I think they're going to go right straight after the FBI people that were involved in the Operation Crossfire Hurricane. They're going to go after them first. They pardoned all the J6ers. I think J6 becomes something that is important, but they're going to get to the bottom of it. They're not going to spend a lot of time and effort right out of the gate trying to figure out who the pipe bomber was. They're going to go after the people that went after Trump directly in his first term. Then they're going to go after other low-hanging fruit, people like Jake Sullivan. I mean, I hope I get to be called in to be a witness, and it really depends on where they have these proceedings. So I was a stenographer in the grand jury system in Washington, D.C. in the 90s when Clinton was being investigated for Whitewater. I listened to those are 1990 era grand juries. This is a very different city now. The way grand juries work in DC is, so if they bring a case, somebody does a government, Clinton did something in the White House. They brought the case through a special counsel into the District Court of DC grand juries. And so the grand juries in DC, first of all, you can't be a grand juror if you're a felon. Well, there's a lot of felons in DC who never get to be on grand juries. So it actually turns out to be the grand jurors are mostly retired people, ex-government. In this city now, they're going to be mostly very liberal, progressive people. So a grand jury. There's 25 people in a DC grand jury. They take 13 votes to get an indictment. It's a preponderance of evidence standard. So it's not you just have to throw a lot of evidence into the grand jury, and they'll basically say, yeah, we're going to indict. So will they get indictments in DC? Maybe. I think Kash Patel is probably wisely going to buy. He's not in charge of it. Pam Bondi is in charge of it, and so she would be the one who decides where the investigations are going to be. I mean, they can investigate Hunter Biden's role in the Metabiota kickback scheme that includes Joe and includes his Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners friends in Arkansas. They had dealings in Arkansas. They could go through an Arkansas grand jury, and that would be much different than a DC grand jury. So they can do things like that. We'll see how it all shakes out. Thank you. Government gangsters. That's what it was. Yeah, I couldn't remember it. Right. Excellent. Yeah. That documentary nails him with such effectiveness. It's so effective, so comprehensive. I highly recommend it. Thank you, Dr. Fauci. It's on Tucker Carlson's network. I'm a subscriber to Tucker Carlson's network, so I haven't watched it. And then I got in touch with, I contacted the documentarian, Jenner. He wants to connect with me once the book is out, because what my book coming out, the Almost Insurmountable Evil book, comes out. It has the Joe Biden side of the Barack Obama side of how the Wuhan plandemic was developed. What he has in that documentary is how Fauci developed the Wuhan plandemic. And the crossover between my book and his documentary is significant. I mean, he's looking at the same places that I'm looking at and finding corruption and crimes in these places. He looks at how Ebola was developed in Africa. Well, what he didn't talk, and he talked about Fauci and doing this Ebola stuff and how that became a big part of the that sort of generated the Wuhan pandemic. I talk about the same thing, but I talk about it because the Ebola crisis that came out in Africa was perpetrated in part by Metabiota being there. So the Bidens, as this, were investing in a biowarfare contractor that was setting up biolabs in Ukraine in 2014, was involved in doing Ebola research in Sierra Leone during the Ebola outbreak in 2014. And they moved on to setting up the Wuhan using gain of function with the Chinese to do research in China in 2014 with Ron Klain and Anthony Fauci's sort of direction. So all these things happened in 2014. And the Thank You, Dr. Fauci documentary documents that beautifully. It gets what they did to get there. He puts Vice President Dick Cheney into a starring role in the origins of how this all developed. Basically, the documentary looks at Fauci's development. They got a lot of information out of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s book, The Real Dr. Fauci, or The Truth About Dr. Fauci, and The Truth About Anthony Fauci, I guess is the title. And so they took that. I looked at that a lot. And then they kind of progressed that into what happened in Wuhan, and then they spread what Fauci did in Wuhan around. Excellent job, very good, really worth watching. And then when you see that, and you at the same time read the book I'm coming out with, it'll be significant. Yeah, I'll try that. I'll check in with him until I told him about me going on here. So yeah, I'll try and check in with him and see if he wants to come on with you guys. Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, really? Interesting. Um, so what happened was I was going through some old paperwork that I had left over. I was on a trip that Cheney did in 2005. He went to Iraq, he went to Afghanistan, he went to Pakistan. And there was a pretty big press contingent. It was kind of a secretive trip into Iraq. I mean, I literally, they didn't tell me where we were going. And I'm driving out to, I thought we were going on Air Force Two, and I see this big military transport. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not going on that, because they have this thing called the car plane, which is unheated. It's really uncomfortable, and it's a terrible way to travel. And I'd been warned, don't ever get on the car plane. And I thought they were putting me on the car plane. It wasn't the car plane. It was a secret way they were going into Iraq. And there was the top, the Secret Service CAT team was on there with me. So once I realized that was going on, I kind of relaxed. But I was pretty tense there, walking out there, because they didn't tell me where we were going. So we get on this plane, we're driving along, and we land in England. And what happened was Cheney flew on the blue and white, lands in England in the dark of night. His senior staff, and the press contingent get off the blue and white. They go on to our C-17 transport. We fly in Iraq in that, because those goes in and out of Iraq all the time. It was a nondescript entry. And the blue and white went on to Oman with Mrs. Cheney on board. It was sort of a decoy. So it was a big subterfuge around the start of this thing. And I thought the big reason was because Iraq was so dangerous. Well, I was looking through some of the paperwork they gave me on that. And what happened, what I realized was, when we were in Pakistan, he did something that was kind of unusual. So he goes to Iraq. He does like 10 hours on the ground and went to the green zone, did some speeches to troops, leaves Iraq, and we overnight in Oman. The next day he gets up, we fly to Afghanistan. It's about a 2-hour flight, 3-hour flight. Does some speeches and meetings in Afghanistan, at Bagram and Kabul, comes back to Oman. The next morning we get up from Oman and fly into Pakistan. We go to the president's palace. President Musharraf was there. He had meetings there. And then he did something that Cheney rarely does. He went on this countryside tour to see what there had been an earthquake there, and there was some American aid being delivered there, Army guys, USAID people, all this stuff. Well, he decides to go, and there was like a mobile, like a MASH unit, like a surgical hospital, mobile armored surgical hospital up in the hills that the Pakistanis were going to for free. It was like he was, hey, we're the great US guys. Well, it was all a cover story. What was really going on was they knew where bin Laden was. And as we're flying to this MASH unit, we flew right over Abbottabad, where bin Laden had his compound. And at the time, I didn't know, no one knew about Abbottabad. It was insignificant. Press is on the plane, I'm on the helos. We're on the helos. We're just flying over. It's this countryside we're flying over. But years later, after, the raid, and Abbottabad is famous for being the site where, bin Laden met his match from SEAL Team 6. I was looking at this paperwork that we had from this day. We flew that helo. Dick Cheney flew his helo right over Abbottabad in 2005. So then I went to the CIA website about the SEAL teams, the elimination of Osama bin Laden. So the CIA has a heritage history website thing. Well, they had all these pictures there, and the pictures were photographs they took somehow of this site. They had a picture of the site in 2004. They had a picture of the site in 2005 as the structure, the residence structure was built. And then they had a final picture in 2011, sort of the residential structure with the walled compound. That was what the SEAL Team 6 breached when they had to go get them. Well, where did they get all these photos? Because they had those photos in 2004, and they flew Dick Cheney over the top of that in 2005. Dick Cheney just doesn't go flying around in helicopters for no good reason. It wasn't to go see, our relief efforts for earthquake survivors in Pakistan. It was to go and check on in country what was going on. The CIA wanted to brag him. This is where we got him. They put him on ice. They had bin Laden on ice in that compound. And the question is, we've only heard the reporting out by our side. We've never heard the other side of it. So we don't know if he was there because he wanted to be there, if he was there because CIA told him to be there and he was there cooperating until he got killed. We don't know. But what we do know is I flew in a helicopter right over Abbottabad in 2005 when there was a building built there that eventually housed Osama bin Laden. And I think he was there then. I don't think they would have flown Dick Cheney all the way into Iraq and Afghanistan and Pakistan and had him get in this helicopter tour without a significant reason. The significant reason was we got Osama bin Laden. He's down there, and we've got him on ice. And that's what happened. And that takes the whole narrative that they put out there and all the CIA psyop they did around who bin Laden was, how dangerous he was, all the things we had to do to contain him and build up this infrastructure, this war footing in Afghanistan, the war footing in Iraq, all that. For 5.5 years, it was unnecessary. They knew it. Why? Why did they do it? Well, that's exactly right. And this is a time when, Ratcliffe is now the CIA director. He's just been ratified, or they got him in today. He's in. Yeah, he got voted in. So this is the time when we're going to start getting answers. This what I just talked about figures directly into the unraveling of the deep state. They're pulling out the stops on what they've been hiding about the Kennedys, what they've been hiding about Martin Luther King. And now we know they were hiding something about Osama bin Laden. What's the real story? Why didn't they tell us they knew where he was in 2005? They have pictures of him. We flew a helicopter right over the top of him. I checked in with James Rosen of Newsmax. He was on that trip. He was a Fox reporter on that trip. And I said, this is what I did. He's like, wow, this is super cool. So this story is going to be around for a little bit. This discovery of the Bin Laden, where was Bin Laden? Why was Cheney flying over Abbottabad in 2005 when they had pictures of Bin Laden building his compound there? How did they know he was there? How did they know that compound belonged to him there? And why? And this is sources and methods. This is what the CIA is always trying to protect. They put it on their website. They have sources and methods. Their method was flying Cheney over the top of it, and their source was these photos that they took. They're not supposed to show that in public, but they did. So somebody somewhere, we got to connect the dots. And now is the time, because we're getting a chance to unravel the deep state. Pompeo figures in my book, An Almost Insurmountable Evil, significantly.
Yeah. Hi, Mike. Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to have you.
Hey, Teresa.
So I just wanted to confirm, this is my opinion, but so many people say, well, all these people are getting away with all kinds of stuff. But I think that they were all treasonous acts, so the military could actually, get them no matter what.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I personally think what's going to happen is we're going to have, I think people like the Vindmans and the low-hanging fruit, like the Vindmans, there's a lot of other conspirators. They're going to have to face significant legal processes. They may even be put on trial. I hope they are. They should be. I don't know if the Biden family, I don't know if Joe Biden will ever get on trial, but I think he's going to be dragged through the mud to the point where it doesn't matter what prison he's in. It's a prison of his own making. Mm-hmm. His name is worthless. His history, his legacy is worthless. Nobody wants to be around him anymore because he's destroying the Democratic Party. All the people that he thought liked him will despise him. And this is all coming pretty quickly. So this is, Joe Biden used to have this phrase he would talk about all the time. He used it regularly. The moral disapprobation of society. You're okay until you face the moral disapprobation of society. That's what he's going to face. I really hope Hunter faces punishment for his crimes. He committed them. And I think that the way to do it is to get to him through Devin Archer. There's a lot more out there. The conspiracy that went into the Wuhan Plandemic is so dark. And that's what this Thank You, Dr. Fauci documentary was so valuable to show all the people. I mean, there's all these virologists. There's all these national health, Health and Human Services grantees that got all this stuff. They've just been running amok with this. So it's time to stand up and get these people out in the sunlight and get them under indictment. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mike, for being here. And we're having a cold front in Hawaii, too.
Hey, McGay.
I got my hoodie on today. Yeah, it's cold. We're in the 70s. You mentioned the pardons and low-hanging fruit. I guess my question would be like Maria Yovanovitch, who was ambassador during that time, maybe a little bit more about the chemical plants and things that were there. What about Nellie or Rob Rosenstein or Robert Mueller?
Right. So that's where I think Kash Patel goes first. I think Kash Patel I think because they defended themselves against those charges from almost the start, they have and Cash was working on that. So he knows that case inside out. They're going to go right after that. And, there's a strategy to it. You're going to bring a case, you want to win the case. And then that builds your momentum to win the next case. So you don't put the hardest case up there first. So I think he's going to put the, Crossfire Hurricane people under indictment as fast as he can for whatever charges he can. My hope is that they can push the Vindmans into that. There was a lot of corruption in the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. You talked about Yovanovitch, but also Ambassador Pyatt was very corrupt with that. So there, and they all testified against in the first impeachment of President Trump. So this is where we're going to start to see things. It's got to be through the court system. I have no trust that the Congress will do anything. I don't care if the Speaker of the House says we're going to do an investigation of such and such. I talk to those people. I talk to the Oversight Committee investigators. I talk to the Senate Homeland Security Governmental Affairs investigators. I talk about that in both books. They didn't do anything with the information I gave them. They didn't interview. They didn't try to get Biden impeached. They could have. They didn't want to do it. They have no resolve in those official bodies. It's more of covering your butt. And so we got to go through the court system. And, frankly, if there's a way they can get tried in a place like Western North Carolina, where people are really ticked off at them, that's going to work great. I would love to see them pull some strings and get some court cases filed in Asheville, North Carolina. That would change the temperature in the room very quickly.
Can I follow up with it? Do you think they would throw Biden and them under the bus, being that they've been pardoned, even though Joe Biden has been pardoned, but some of the key figures in their testimonies?
I think what you're going to see is at some point, the Democratic Party is going to have to. Joe Biden, the story of Jonah, he was the guy who was causing problems on the ship, so they threw him overboard. That's when he got swallowed by the whale. Well, there's a phrase in the maritime activities of you don't want to be a Jonah. Joe Biden is the Jonah of the Democratic Party. They're going to throw him overboard and save themselves.
Oh, it's not that cold here. Welcome back, Mike. Recently, I seen an interview with Speaker Johnson where he kind of dropped the bomb that Biden and him he finally got a conversation with Biden, and he didn't realize that he'd cut off the liquid gas being exported.
Yeah.
Biden declared he was just, it wasn't that, and they actually proved that he had no idea of what he was signing as executive orders.
Right.
My question is, when they're in their office, is there recordings of who's talking to them, who's leading them around?
That's a good question. So, no, there aren't. What they do now, after Nixon went in and he had a recording system in the Oval Office, they took all that stuff off. So now what they have is if there's a sensitive conversation in the Oval Office or the, high level White House people, they have note takers in there, and they jot down the notes in these green books. They're like cloth bound books, and there's like piles of them. That's the notebook where Crossfire Hurricane, they were able to get a hold of those notes in that investigation, and I think there was a note in there that I think it was Comey took the note, or maybe it was the CIA director took the note. So those would be the notes, and they weren't in their hand. It's usually a staffer in there taking it. So that way, there's always a layer of, hey, I didn't write that, the staffer did, and I made a mistake. So there's always a layer of sort of fudging it. So they do those meetings with books. So what Biden, the admission that the speaker had about Biden was like that when he was vice president. He wasn't a detail guy. He was kind of like a big picture guy. And, you know, the picture of him wandering out and kind of looking where to stand on the stage, he kind of did that as a vice president too. Not as bad as he did in the later stages, but he kind of was always had to be told where to go by his staff, had to be sort of, you know, guided around. And I don't know if I told you guys this, but one time my wife, this is a Biden story. One time my wife and I were at the Naval Observatory for a reception, one of the few that he invited me to, a holiday reception. And we were standing there by the refreshment table. It was kind of meager. He's kind of a cheap guy. And I look up and we're just sitting there. I look up and I see there's Joe Biden and there's a whole bunch of little kids there. You know, staffers brought their kids there and they're all nicely dressed. And he just like appeared out of nowhere. And I was shocked because he was supposed to be in the other room taking pictures or talking to the big shots. And here he is with these kids. And he goes, "Hey, kids, you want to come upstairs and see my dog?" And they go, "Yeah." And they start jumping up and down. Well, there's two staircases in that Naval Observatory. There's a main staircase that sort of goes to the big upstairs, fancy style. Then there's a side staircase that goes right up to his bedroom suite. That's the staircase he took those kids up. And they disappeared up that thing in about 2 seconds. And his dog, when he said he wanted to come up and see my dog, his dog was in the bedroom. That's where he kept his dog. And I'm standing there and I'm watching this and I'm like, oh my God. Because I'd been in that house for Vice President Cheney events. There is no way kids are going upstairs with anyone in those events. And this is Joe Biden inviting them upstairs. Gone. They're vanished. Across the room comes sprinting his press secretary. He was my boss, a woman named Kendra Barkoff. And she's sprinting at full length, color drained from her face. Up the stairs, behind there. I'm sure nothing happened. I'm sure she got there. But just the fact that he was that so out of touch with proper behavior, that's Joe Biden. And that would be him in the White House, not knowing what he's signing, not caring really what he's signing. He's not a serious leader. And they put him in there illegally. And that's what we've got to unravel.
The perfect dupe. Basically.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Plug in.
You got it. Good for you.
I got a question I got to ask you, okay? On page 187, this guy, Justin Saint, Bloomberg reporter, asked Joe Biden about Hunter and Burisma. Joe says, "My son is a private citizen, and I never speak to him about his business." You say that was the first and last time I think any White House reporter ever asked Joe about Hunter's business. How do they stop the reporters from asking after that? What happened?
I couldn't quite get it. You're a little garbled. What was the question?
A second.
There it is.
Hey, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's good. There you go.
Okay. So my question is, how did they get every reporter not to ask him about this ever again? How do they do that?
Right. That's a great question. Because they got paid not to ask him. All of the, Washington Post, New York Times, ABC, NBC, CBS, they were paid not to ask him questions. Yep. That's what they were paid to do. And Trump went around it.
Wow.
And that's why they had to get rid of Trump. Because Trump walked in there, he said, "You guys are fake news." He knew it. And now we know they couldn't counter it. I'm trying to get I'm trying to get a press pass to go into the White House press briefings and ask questions. And I'll ask questions that these guys won't ask because they're paid not to, but I'm not. I fingers crossed I get that done.
Wow. Well, thank you, because I found that so interesting. And like I said, again, your book is great. I hope more people read it. But
Thanks.
when I saw that this reporter from Bloomberg asked a question and then he gets shut down and everybody gets shut down.
Right.
That's, I mean, what's wrong with this picture here?
Yeah. And, you know, they did that with Obama, too.
Right.
They protected them. And that's what was shocking about Trump. Trump came in and they attacked him about the silliest, stupidest, inconsequential things. They took false information, the Russia hoax,
Right.
and pretended it was real. Well, I mean, look at CNN. CNN is dissolving in front of your eyes, right? CNN is dissolving in front of your eyes. And so is Politico is dissolving in front of you. All of a sudden, the only place you can go for real reporting is Substack or Newsmax or the New York Post. A few outlets, a few writers, but by and large, I mean, the Associated Press, forget about that. You know, and it'll be really interesting to see how this Substack I just came out with this, you know, Osama bin Laden sort of being there underneath right under their thumb. We'll see how that gets promoted through the media. It's a major media story, and they should pick it up. My guess is, and part of what I wrote in the Substack was the major media people who were on the trip. Dana Bash was on that trip. Mm-hmm. Terry Moran was on that trip. AP was on that trip. These major organizations all have a stake in protecting their integrity. And if they don't, then, you know, why bother with them?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The fact that Robert Hur, the special counsel, interrogated Biden and said that he had a poor memory and was incapable and did not charge him because he was incapable and had memory problems and was therefore he was unfit, really. If he was unfit, wouldn't it be possible for everything he's done to be questioned because he was unfit to be president? I asked one of my friends, and she said she thought they were working on that. Now, if that happens, all of his pardons would not be, illegal. I don't know what would happen in that case. What is your view on that?
I think that's a long shot. That's a real long shot to unravel him because of that decision. You know, he wasn't going to step down. He didn't stop doing presidential stuff because of that. You know, everybody just sort of accepted that. Oh, he doesn't have to face the music with this Hur guy, because he's old and infirm. And so I don't think it nullifies what he did. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the legal technical things. I think they're just going to go at it differently. I think there's, like I said, low-hanging fruit. There's plenty of low-hanging fruit where they've got, I mean, I can go in and be a witness to, you know, he was a criminal on Air Force Two. So was Jake Sullivan. And if they want to take my testimony and use that as evidence and then take that into a court of law, they've got evidence against Joe Biden. They've always said, oh, we don't have evidence. Well, the second I testify against them on that specific point, yes, they do have evidence. And that point that I'm talking about occurred in 2014. But the charge that I brought up to the FBI was conspiracy. It's a conspiracy between Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan. Well, that conspiracy never stopped. It started in 2014, but it went all the way through his presidency. So whether he was president or not president, he was involved in a conspiracy in 2020, right before he got elected. And the statute of limitations hasn't run out on that. So he can still be tried for that. That's what Trump was talking about. He didn't pardon himself. So we'll see how we get with this, the charges against Joe Biden. I think that's the more significant. And actually, you know, at this point, it goes back to what I said, the moral disapprobation of society. What they want to get out of the tail end of this Biden rundown presidency, what the MAGA people, and the Republicans, some of them want to do is they want to deteriorate the voting strength of the Democratic Party. They want to turn those people into non-voters. They want them so disgruntled and disaffected that they won't come out for the midterms. We're heading in that direction. If the information gets past the media as it's doing now, and people start to realize that what Joe did to get elected with the Wuhan pandemic, with the stolen election, you know, he's not coming. The Democratic Party is going to pay the price. That's what they're trying to get to.
So I was really fascinated by your story about being there at the event where he asked the children if they wanted to take the dog upstairs to his room. Interestingly, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. Who or what entities other than the press secretary and the obvious in that moment are actually or have been or were controlling the Biden administration itself?
That's a good question. So that was 2014. Joe Biden was was 2014. When was it? No, it was actually 2013. We got invited to the holiday reception right after he got back from China with Hunter, that creepy trip he did with Hunter. So he was pretty much in charge of his faculties. His staffers were feeding the fire. Joe Biden was on fire then. He wanted to be the president. They were feeding the fire. So they gave him all the latitude in the world. They would just basically give him advice. As he began to deteriorate, and this is what started after 2018, I'd say, he started to deteriorate. They realized that he just didn't have the fire that he had. And so I was on Fox News in September of 2020 on Laura Ingram's show. And I said, look, he's a shell of his former self. I mean, I was like, this guy is not, he's unfit for the presidency. And they put it on Fox. People heard it. It made a bit of a splash, but the media didn't let it come through, right? They protected him. And so that was because Obama was protecting him. The Obama people were protecting him. The Biden people. So the top people in the Biden orbit to look at who was manipulating him behind the scenes: Steve Ricchetti, Mike Donilon, Tom Donilon, a guy named Ted. I'm missing the last name. I'll get to it. Ron Klain, Anthony Blinken, Tony Blinken. So all these guys were part of it. Plus Hunter and Jill. Those guys were a part of it. That was all, and the family was behind it, you know, the grandkids. I mean, they were all sort of in on his brothers. All the people that got pardoned were part and parcel of this sort of gang. You know, it was more like a gang that he was the leader of. And so the decisions were always his. I mean, you know, the Speaker Johnson came out and said, well, he didn't know what he was doing. He knew what he was doing for at least 4 hours a day, to the point where he could do some really nasty stuff. You know, you saw what he did. He went after Trump. That was Joe Biden. That wasn't other people. That was Joe Biden making those calls. It was Joe Biden who decided to pardon his family during Trump's speech. That was his call. So he has that devious side that he never let go of. As much as, horror said he was this incapable old man, he still had the capability to do evil, and he was motivated to do it. He always was.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, thank you for being here. It's really interesting to hear the inside scoop. I mean, you've been to some places, it's just interesting to hear your perspective. I just wanted to ask you, do you think they knew Osama bin Laden was there and then they set up the raid for a PR? Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, right. I mean, it was very strange to me that when I saw those photos that the CIA put up on their website, I was like, wow, the CIA had photos of his compound from 2004, 2005 through 2011. They were surveilling him specifically there. And it's almost like, and we don't know if they were surveilling him or if they were paying him to stay there. And he didn't realize that they were going to kill him when they needed to. And they waited until the year before the election when they could get the biggest bang from it. And that's what they did. I mean, it was like their pet terrorist, keeping him up in the hills in Pakistan, to just wait till they could kill him. And thank goodness no Americans got killed in the process. It wasn't an easy, it wasn't like they had to go in and they had to shoot their way in and kill people and get in and out safely. It had to be done. It was a high value target. So they were definitely defending him, but the CIA knew where he was. I wouldn't be surprised if there were, double agents inside Al-Qaeda that had been feeding information to them about it. And probably since the beginning when he first snuck out of the Tora Bora area. And the question is then, I mean, the CIA put Osama bin Laden on the map. I mean, they're the ones that gave him the armaments to start Al-Qaeda against the Soviets. So there was a CIA connection with him from the beginning. Yeah. So somebody was running through, I don't know how it worked. I'm not a spy, but they had their influencers in his organization, and they may have been there the whole time, and they may have walked him out of Tora Bora into Pakistan, told the CIA, hey, we're going here, this is where we are. And the CIA is like, that's great, we know where he is. Hey, let's send Dick Cheney flying over in a helicopter, keep him off our backs. Okay, yeah. So Dick Cheney goes flying over in a helicopter, and the press is there without even knowing it. And I'm sure Dick Cheney enjoyed that, taking the press, flying over Osama bin Laden's compound, and they didn't have any clue. And they still don't for 20 years until we found this topic in this one document, and then the photos on the CIA website. So, yeah, I think it's all PR. The CIA is a gigantic PR machine, and you'll read a lot about them in the next book I have.
Yeah, nothing is as it seems. Thank you.
I wanted to ask Mike, do you think that Obama is really actually the puppet master? I mean, I believe that Biden is evil, can be evil and make evil decisions. But do you think that Obama is the one that really is speaking through him?
No. I was talking about this the other day, and I just learned this not too long ago from somebody in my Substack. So I've said for a while now that I've always thought that it was Biden who was the puppet master and Obama was the puppet. And that's because Biden got all these choice assignments. And his goal was to get these choice assignments to raise his profile to become the presidential candidate of 2016. Bo got sick and Hillary became the presidential candidate. There was definitely a head-to-head race between Joe and Hillary for a few years there. And then Bo got sick. So he sort of took himself out of it. But he was always the puppet master. And what happened was, I think Obama was, there was allegations by a guy came to Washington in 2008 I think the spring of 2008. And he said, I had homosexual relations with Barack Obama. I'm a limousine driver or something like that in Chicago. And, he and I went and did some stuff together. And he went public with it. And he went down to the National Press Club. And he was actually interviewed by Tucker Carlson. I don't remember the guy's name. Well, all this comes out and the press just ignored it. Typical of the press. They're told, don't protect them, don't investigate them. But what happened with this guy was he winds up getting, he somehow went to Delaware or was lured into Delaware. He gets arrested in Delaware by Bo Biden and jailed. And they do a grand jury investigation of him that year. Like he's off the streets and he's undercover thanks to Bo Biden. 2 months later, Joe Biden gets named the vice president. There was a connection there all along. And the connection was Joe Biden was a puppet master. He knew what Obama was doing and he was protecting him.
Hi, Mike. So nice to meet you. I had heard allegations, I think as far back as 2001, from people in the field that there was an operative, CIA operative named Tim Osman, who was one and the same as Osama bin Laden, that there was two identities, one person. And the fact that they never visually had a visual on body recovery. And then there was some connection with Iraq and Obama over that. It just made a really interesting web there. And I just wondered if you could weigh in on that at all.
I mean, I've never heard Tim Osman. I know what I know based on what was talked about in the White House. It surprised me when I saw in this CIA website, they had these photos of this site, the compound, the Osama bin Laden compound. So I think they knew, there's a lot of intel that goes in, and they had a history with this guy. The storyline, if you look back at it, didn't really make sense. They give this guy all this, he's this rebel character in Afghanistan, but he's from a wealthy Saudi family. And, he's this sort of hermetic guy. And they give him all this money. They give him all these guns. He goes against the Soviets. And then he becomes a terrorist, like I'm anti-West terrorist. They had him in their sights when he was doing something in Africa in 1998. Clinton could have gotten rid of him. I think it was Uganda he was in. And they didn't. They didn't pull the trigger on him. Why didn't they get rid of a master terrorist when they had him in their sights? They never answered that. So then 2001 happens, and then we're finding this nightmare, and the nightmare increases into the war on terror. People are there. They're getting killed. They're dying. We're throwing money, piles and piles of money into Afghanistan, into Iraq, and all for this shadowy figure that's got Americans scared. And then it turns out that they kind of knew where he was half the time that they were doing all this warfare. We got to get to the bottom of this.
what I was going to ask is, do you believe in election interference?
Yes. I think Joe Biden stole the election with just despicable ease in 2020. I think Scott Presler and a lot of people, Charlie Kirk, got out there and overwhelmed their tactics this time with registrations. It won't. We got to keep working on that. I'm glad Scott Presler's still doing it, and they've got to pass election reform through a national election reform the way Florida has done it. If you look at how Florida's cleaned up their act, man, they're not even they're not a battleground state anymore. And it's not neither here or there. It's just there's no complaining about how Florida conducts their elections right now. So good for them. And that's got to be the case in all states nationally.
There she goes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. With all this information coming out about the Biden crime family, do you think Trump will be able to seize their assets?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would love to see that. I'd love to see them have to pay them or their henchmen, Tony Blinken, all these guys. I'd love to see them have to pay civil penalties for what they've done. We may get there.
Okay.
Fauci we may get there. I think that's eventually where it winds up. Sure, absolutely. That'd be great. New book comes out February 5th. The title of the book is An Almost Insurmountable Evil, how Barack Obama's deep state defiled the Catholic Church and executed the Wuhan Plandemic. 5th, it'll be on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And it's, print publication. So you order it and they print it and they send it to you. It should be pretty, it has a lot in there about how the CIA and Obama defiled the Catholic Church by making Pope Francis their legislative tool. So that's not how the church is supposed to be run. He's not working for God. He was working for Barack Obama. That's not how it worked. That's not what God and Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross for. That's certainly not. Great. I'll look forward to that. We'll talk to you guys again. You too. Good night.
Getting this out.
I'm on the radio till 11. Call me after 11. I'm on the show. I'm on the show.
Yes.
Oh, he's pushed it too far.
And I've made it official, an official policy of the United States, that there are only two genders, male and female. And we will have no men participating in women's sports, and transgender operations, which became the rage, will occur very rarely. And I've made it. And by the way, speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
Mr. President, I'll say that your friend Gianni said hello, told me to tell you hello, and we look forward to sponsoring the World Cup when it comes, both this summer for the club and next year. So thank you for getting that for the United States.
And by the way, speaking of you and my message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct.
And so we know that the most consequential relationship in the world is between the U.S. and China. U.S. 28% of the global economy, China close to 20, that's almost half of the global GDP. And we know that you called President Xi Jinping last Friday. We heard that you had a good discussion. How do you see the relationship between the U.S. and China in the next 4 years under your leadership?
He called me. I see it very good. I think that we're going to have a very good relationship. All we want is fairness. We just want a level playing field. We don't want to take advantage. We've been having massive deficits with China.
Because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video. So if that altercation had occurred in Memphis, the chief of police would be immediately notified.
Well, look, I write books on Bible prophecy. We're right at the precipice of having the technology that the Antichrist is going to need to make everybody take a mark on their hand and won't be able to buy or sell without it. This is the technology that allows that to happen is AI. And you won't be able to get away from it. You can't hide from it. In China, they got facial recognition. There's nowhere you can go. How are you going to get out of this? We're right there. In 2029, you got this asteroid called Apophis supposed to hit the Earth on April 13, 2029. You've heard about that? That means prior to that, you got to see the rapture of the church. There has to be at least 3.5 years between that. We're right there at the precipice of the second coming of Christ. And this just proves it.
Project Stargate. So yes, we kind of have known that AI has been creeping into parts of our society, like especially in the last couple of years, I've noticed. I mean, even at my job, we've got AI going on. I'm, my filmmaking, people doing that, like they're talking about how great AI is. And it's like, now you have Trump talking about how he's, I guess, supporting the AI movement in a way. But I almost think it's kind of like a sleight of hand, really, because everything else he's doing doesn't jive with what this whole AI program is designed to do, which is to basically be a surveillance state in essence, and to basically, yeah, well, exactly, and to remove people in general. I mean, which goes along with the depopulation program. It's just another layer of that whole deal. And so what I think it is it's a sleight of hand. It's like an avalanche of things that Trump is basically throwing at the deep state, the cabal, these entities, by all of these executive orders. And so normally, they'll throw something at them and it'll be just like one or two things, but this is like just an avalanche falling on them. And I think there's a reason for it, because it's like carpet bombing in a way. They're going to have to choose something or a few things to be what they're going to try to spin the narrative their direction. So I think this is almost in a way trying to undo all the MK Ultra that's happened, within the general public, with all the brainwashing we've had with our, mainstream media and mainstream Hollywood and all that. And I think this is kind of part of that, and he's using that as a vehicle to do it.
Mhm. Well, this is the Patriot Act on steroids, and it's what Mike said. Back of the beast. It's all there. When I look at Larry Ellison, he does own 98% of the island of Lanai, and it's a haven for the. Years ago, when I came to the island, I began to name it E Club Med Hawaii, because all the techies are here, all the big money's in here. So when you look at Larry Ellison, he has partnered in the last few years with Elon Musk, as we know. But his wife is Jolyn Zhu. Jolyn Zhu was formerly known as Kirin Zhu. She's a 33-year-old Chinese native. Larry Ellison, as you know, is 80 years old. Nothing can be found on this woman. She's the biggest mystery around of what her background is. We do have some colleges and things she went to, but she's an enigma. But Larry Ellison, I'm not sure where the feedback's coming from. He's associated with a foundation. There's many foundations, one dealing with age-related disease and disabilities. And through his AI, he was recently talking about a cancer thing. He's also involved with Imagine AI. That's another model design digital platform that runs on Oracle Cloud. And looks like these people are really dealing with issues of immortality. He's also involved with Quark Pharmaceuticals. Invested $24 million in that. It's developing RNA interference, dealing with acute diseases, treatments. He's also, was a Chinese-based company as well. He invested $29 million in Theranos. Theranos at one time went belly up, let's say, but they were into blood pathogens and healthcare, blood testing, and the rumor really around them was adrenochrome, which would be manufactured adrenochrome. And he's also got NetSuite, that's a business software development. He's also got $5 million in a company called A4 Vision, which is 3D facial recognition. So again, we're back into the technology. He also invested in something called Turin Networks, which is a telecommunications company. $8 million in Supergen, which is a bioengineering systems company. Again, everything to do with health and technical and communications and keeping your eye on us. We call it, years ago, there was a television program called Person of Interest, where there was a camera on every. Right. That'll also explain a little bit about what we call the black cube that supposedly the deep state have, and also the yellow cube. Because in that series, you'll hear of the engineer that developed the supercomputer system, and then when he realized the government was using it for nefarious reasons, he built another one that was more advanced than the one he built before. So it's really interesting, but that's where we are now. And we do know that, like I said, more billionaires, millionaires, whatever, are migrating to Hawaii, buying up all the land. And when we get into, we're not even talking about Zuckerberg yet, or Jeff Bezos and his connections here. Kamala looking for land here now. Scamala, I should call her. We got it all. Yep. Yep. Person of interest.
Knowledge is power. And what they're talking about is surveillance state, massive surveillance state. And when you think about it, if they know everything about you, they can blackmail you, they can reward you, they will control you. The other thing that I've done by looking at the three people that were on there, they're all more or less related back to the World Economic Fund. And I believe one of the big investors in Ellis's group was BlackRock, who owns pretty much everything. And if you all remember, Fink once said, if we don't agree with what you're doing to make you better, we will force you to change. Well, didn't he just say that he will make us be better behaved? Because they'll be watching us. And so it's basically all WEF just nicely wrapped. It's the next layer of them. The last thing that I was thinking about was the name of it. They don't choose names randomly. Nothing's done by random chance. Stargate. That has some connotations towards the UFOs, UAPs now, and also the occult, where they're one of the main functions of a Stargate is an interdimensional. And that seems to be coming up a lot lately. Think about that new quantum computer that they believe is going through different dimensions. Are we being controlled? Maybe, like Mike said, the Antichrist. It goes AI, AGI, ASI. And as they move up, ASI, we're done. We're basically done once we get it past the AI. But could the Antichrist be coming in to our homes? Our lives are very touching, where they will have our mark on us. That's a possibility there. How the surveillance system may be the Antichrist itself, not just a man. So, but yeah.
We let the World Economic Forum infiltrate our country over time, and that group actually has reinvented itself over the years from different other groups, and it's the same like families basically. and they just generationally hold these different types of think tanks or, you know, whatnot. And today's latest flavor is the World Economic Forum. That's what they've morphed into. So
these stargates that you were talking about could also refer to the 12 cranial ports of the brain. So we haven't reached our full potential, as they say, as God intended us to be. So they're tapping into everything about God's creation, which is us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you were talking about putting thoughts into your head. The Steve Baker, who was a journalist during J6, he's now pardoned. He was reporting about them using different DEWs, direct energy weapons, not lasers, but microwaves and other energy weapons, where one of the things they use is called the voice of God, where they can literally speak directly into your head. Most people, if they hear a voice that isn't their own, they're considered schizophrenic. So they can control us that way as well. You know, just, and that's new technology.
well, basically, I mean, this gets into another layer that can be sensitive for people who are extremely spiritual or religious. That's the way I'll describe it. Especially people who specifically follow the Bible, specifically follow the Quran, specifically follow whatever dogma that they follow. This whole Stargate thing that Rob is talking about. I mean, and the UAPs. I actually here's my thought. Like, there's actually extraterrestrials that are actually basically here already. And they're actually part of this whole control structure. And I don't know anybody on here, maybe you do, Rob, or maybe even Magaso, but there is Laura Eisenhower actually is somebody who I've followed for a really long time, who actually gets into some of these topics. She's the great granddaughter of Dwight D. Eisenhower. And it all kind of stems back to like ufology, really. If you study that whole topic, it gets into these types of things. And it really starts to connect when you look at the big picture of what we see on the surface and what our reality has been to what really is underneath or side by side with what our reality is. So what I think is going on right now is we're about to have a reality shift, a huge reality shift from what we are used to. Now, some people who, maybe are a little more open-minded than most of the general public have already looked at this stuff and have already discussed it. And that's why they keep talking about, well, we need to have people who, can help the other people. And what they're talking about is the thinkers, the conspiracy theorists, the people who've asked the weird questions and went on those rabbit holes, because guess what? Those rabbit holes are real. And the public is not going to be able to handle it without someone holding their hand and helping walk them through it. And it has to be other human beings to do it, because you can't have extraterrestrials come out and say, hey, here we are. Because, that would just cause mass panic.
Mm-hmm.
They could be. I do think there may be some underground, but there also are some that are not underground. They're all over, and in fact, some of them are from other dimensions that we aren't even aware of or that we can't sense. Because of what our beings are and how we are created. So.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on some of the chemicals, if you would, in the vaccines or different things to go around. One of them was luciferase. So it's the Lucifer chemical. So you don't make this stuff up. And a lot of companies, too, have already gone to chips in their employees' wrists, where they buy their goods from the vending machines, just holding up their wrist and scanning. And so the technology is already there. It's already was in our clothing for a long time for theft, if you would. So it's here. It's just a matter of who's in control right now, and this can go very, very wrong very quickly, very quickly. Yeah. Yes. Well, I wanted to point out too, is like even with the fires in California, when you look at most of those homes had smart meters, and that's a receiver for a direct energy weapon hit. That's why they want smart meters on everybody's home. Every business has to have one in Hawaii, but you can opt out in your residential area. But there's another technology, and also if they boost the microwave uh, frequency coming out, that's when you'll start seeing people who have been vaccinated begin to start dropping like flies.
He was a little bit too animated.
What was that topic all about? It was about land speculation.
Yeah, okay. Here's a thought. In the Bible, it talks about being deceived. We're deceived by this person that comes in, and then he creates peace all through the world. And he's reviled or revered, and then he turns out to be a bad person. Well, let's just hope that's not Trump. But what I wanted to say is, here's a concept. AI is the new God. People are turning to AI for everything. They don't talk to God as much as they talk to AI. They ask Siri on their phones. They're always talking to AI. And I think that AI is really evil. And yeah, I think it's going to be really bad for our society. Yeah.
Hi, I was just going to say that I know everyone's raising the alarm flag about it, and there are obviously applications that AI that cause grave concern. But NSA has been doing to us what everyone's afraid AI is going to do already for many years. Yeah, they've been spying on us. There's been yes, yes. Well, I understand AI is tracking every aspect of your life. For instance, like the smart meters that track your usage. I mean, it's what I'm saying is these applications have been going before Trump ever announced the Stargate. These applications have been up and running, and they've been running nefariously for a long time, and they've been trying to bring those to the curb. You talk about McGee mentioned the luciferase and the vaccines as well, and there was also the Hydra vulgaris, the parasite that was inserted in these vaccines. Columba and some of the other organizations had shown actual photographs when they tested the serums, and these are known to eat the pineal gland, which is a lot like what the those things that the cabal was using, the horrible vril to go through the eye into the brain to eat the pineal gland. And what that does is, in essence, it is your connection to the divine. It is your connection, your God connection, and to try to sever that. So all of these applications have been in action for a long time. So and then also, not to throw Trump under the bus just yet, but he had also mentioned just recently in a video that yes, there were some aspects that are going to be used for purposes that are very useful and benevolent or whatever, and that they were going to be sure to make sure that they would curb those uses to not be for the dark things that have already been in use. So AI has been in use. He's just bringing it to the forefront. I think a lot of times when he does that, it's to raise everybody's awareness about AI and the capabilities of AI, so people can be on board with what's going on and have people's ability to weigh in on that. I think a lot of times he brings things front and center, even if they're scary, just so the public can kind of raise awareness and get people on board. So that's all I'm saying is everything that they're talking about has already been in use.
Oh, the Patriot Act.
Hey, brother Ashley. My question is for Mike or Miguito. Okay. Okay. No, yeah, not Stargate. It's the other three-letter agencies. Okay.
But
Oh, 40 degrees.
but Ashley, you live in Orlando area, and remember, hell freezes over.
All right, listen, first of all, we got to give Trump all the credit. He stopped global warming in his first week because it's 37 degrees here in Ocala, Florida. It's snowing in Jacksonville. Poor Ashley is freezing his butt off. He thinks he's in Alaska over there in Orlando. So global warming is dead. Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Yes.
Okay.
So fascinating.
We are seeing the craziest year we've ever seen. It started off with a terror attack on the first, lightning on the second hits the Capitol. We're getting the greatest cold spell we've had in 50 years, which I think God did intentionally to stop all the anti-Trump rallies that would have happened in Washington, D.C. had it been 70 degrees and not 12.
Amen.
Yep.
Okay. So, I think that this is all God orchestrated, and I think they would have had another attempt on his life. I think that was planned, and we're seeing the craziest year we've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mike, I have a question for you. Do you think the good Lord brought in that bishop activist to speak at the inauguration?
You know, let me tell you something. That just shows you how we're such in the end times. Okay, that demonic woman who is out there disrespecting the president of the United States for her own selfish gain. Okay, trying to be, some fake piety about sin. You know, when the rapture happens, there's two sets of saints. There's the ones that are known as the overcomers in Revelation 3:10. And then there's the ones without oil in their lamp in Matthew 25. And certainly that's what we saw there. You can't cover up for sin and say Jesus just loves you like she's trying to do. It's okay. You could be homosexual. You do whatever you want. I got a real wake-up call in this area. And I'm telling you, what the church lacks is holiness. How many people do you know are striving to be holy in these end times?
Nope, they just want to wait until they can ask for forgiveness.
Well, it turns out she was an activist anyways, back in the BLM days and supporting George Floyd and all that.
Listen, this year is the 5th year is known as the year of ascension. If anybody's ever read a book by my favorite stock trader, W.D. Gann, he talks about it. The stock market usually always goes up in the 5th year. We'll see that happen again. There'll be a sell-off before it goes up this time because there's going to be some issues that they're going to try and crash the market because the Democrats really hate Trump. But then it's going to recover and go up. The 9th year is a year of judgment, like 1929, 1869, 2009. And we have that asteroid, Apophis, that's supposed to hit the Earth on April 13th, 2029. Now, think about this. Rapture happens. Revelation 12, 1,260 days before the dispensation of grace ends and Daniel's 70th week begins. That takes you to October 31st. Rosh Hashanah's Rosh Hashanah comes in September. It's the perfect timing. I mean, no one knows the day or the hour, but I'm just seeing this is the perfect timing. Everything's lining up. Here he is, proof that global warming is dead. Ashley's back. So I'll let anybody else chime in.
Well, one other thing that I hate to go back to the AI, but I've kind of been fixated on that. One of the executive orders that Biden signed in that President Trump got rid of was AI oversight. While they were testing AI, if there was any problems, they were supposed to flag it and let the government know that there was a problem. That was one of the executive orders that President Trump got rid of. I don't know if he's going to reissue it, but when you do a blanket anything without looking through all of it, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, but the reason the Democrats wanted that oversight so they could control it, just like they did social media, like Facebook and everything else.
Yeah, but the other way you got to look at it, AI is going to happen. AIG, ASI is going to happen, regardless of what we do. So it's just a question of who's going to get there first. Whoever gets there first is going to be in control of the world.
The Antichrist is coming.
Yeah.
And let's face it,
stop it. All you can do is prepare for it. Get personally ready to meet your maker because it's coming. I'm more convinced than ever it's 2025. I could be wrong, but I've studied this a long, long time, and I'm seeing all the sides converge. And I mean, there's videos out there, people that had near-death experiences, and Jesus told them he's coming in 25. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that just making it line up.
Well, you also have the planetary alignments, the seven planets lining up on the 25th, and that's going to occur again in September, I believe. Will be the second alignment.
That's right.
There are things that
are the wildfires burning in California. I mean, we're seeing crazy stuff we've never seen before. The whole state's burning down over there.
Yeah. Well, they lit the match. They didn't pay attention to what was the signs, just like in Lahaina. Same thing. If you're going to blame the forest, you got to clear the forest. So it was all planned to put in place. We know
it was arson, right? Yep.
I was a little surprised. I don't know what everybody's feelings is. Trump at Davos when he mentioned crypto, being heavily involved in crypto.
I'm not surprised about that actually, because I keep seeing in because I follow a lot of those crypto chats and Telegram and a lot of those crypto channels, the people that are really into that. And that seems to be the XRP, I think is the go-to here. That's what they're trying to implement. They're that's at least the Trump camp. I mean, because you also have the cabal camp, which here's the thing is in talking about how, well, maybe Trump isn't so good after all. It doesn't mean that he's not against the cabal, but it could be two bad factions fighting each other, and we're just exchanging one bad faction for another bad faction.
Of Lyndon B. Johnson.
Right, but when it comes to the finance, we're talking about Bitcoin, not crypto.
Well, that's what they always say, but here's the thing. I can tell you about Bitcoin. I mean, I don't know how many of you have Bitcoin or have ever had Bitcoin.
We know.
Yeah,
they're two different things.
Yeah, they are. And here's the thing. Bitcoin is the first one, and it was created by MIT, basically. And Satoshi Nakamoto was just like a pen name for like a group that actually created this coin. And that was initially what they were going to use, but they found out the technology wasn't as efficient as it needed to be in order to make the transactions, as quick as what we're used to in our SWIFT system that we currently have right now. So basically, like I used to mine Bitcoin, and I used to mine Litecoin actually, which was another like splinter of Bitcoin. And it takes so much power to mine all that, and that's funny about that he was talking about how AI, it takes so much power to run AI more than what we already have right now. That was one of the things he said at Davos today. And so basically Bitcoin's inefficient. It's just not, it's not really feasible. So XRP is really, I mean, it's instantaneous transaction. The transaction fees are super low. And that's one of the reasons why I got out of Bitcoin when I was really getting into that about 2017, was because, you know, Bitcoin, I sold all my Bitcoin because I saw that all the market was going to crash right before it was going to crash. And I sold it into the other smaller altcoins is what I did. But the transaction fee was huge. And I was like, well, geez, half of my Bitcoin went to transaction fees. So then I found and stumbled across XRP. And I mean, it's instantaneous. Like you make a transaction and the fee is like so minuscule. It's, you don't even hardly notice it. And so that's going to be what they're trying to get into on the Trump camp. Now, the cabal wanted to do the CDCs, which was a different type of crypto thing. And I didn't get into all the mechanics of how that worked, but I just knew that that was what they were, that was theirs. They were going to do something related to the Federal Reserve and the CDCs and a basket of currencies or something along those lines. Now it's kind of confusing and getting very, what's the word I'm looking for? Convoluted, because there's so many people. When you think about it, the control of money is absolute power on this planet, is it not? So, because money is energy, money equals energy. So whoever or whatever entities or groups control the flow of energy, which is money, that's going to be what is considered value, because that's what we all follow. We worship money right now. If you think about it, everybody's trying to make a big dollar. The dollar is the big thing now, because we don't know what the next thing's going to be. And unless you're in those rooms that are creating these technologies, you don't know. And so it's just a guess. And then you've got old technology, which is gold and silver, which has been around forever. So you've got these competing things, and it's really who wins this financial war, which is going on right now in front of us. And that's going to determine how energy is going to flow.
Well, to me, it's who wins the spiritual war, because money is the root of all evil. And when you're talking about exterior and those things, it uses blockchain technology, which is more secure, because they were going to use that for the voting systems when Trump was going to put in the voter ID. So that was talked about, putting those in the post offices at that time, as opposed to the postal system. Those are two different things too. So crypto, just my only flag with crypto is that crypt means death. So we always say the words mean something that they use.
Good point. Yeah, that's right. You're right. I didn't think of that, but yeah.
We don't want to go into the crypt. And
Nope.
I think it's more, and Mike and other people have mentioned about being holy. Well, it's that spirit that needs to be the driving factor, not the money or the Bitcoin.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but the thing is, most of society is programmed to worship money, and until people can be deprogrammed from worshiping money and finding other ways to exchange energy, because energy is whatever we create, whatever our labor is to create whatever that is, whether it be food or resources or, you know, entertainment. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, but it takes human energy to do it.
Yeah, Rob, we talked about the AI before. Just get back on that. We haven't even touched upon what Jeff Bezos is doing and what Mark Zuckerberg's doing right now. I mean, Zuckerberg's sitting there at the inauguration, but we here in Kauai, where Zuckerberg resides, we're not fans of Mark Zuckerberg. He censored us all. He's basically who talked about COVID and the bioweapon and things at that time. So we want accountability, because he's got blood on his hands and we don't want to see him elevated. And we believe the only reason he kissed the ring was for financial reasons, because Meta and Facebook was losing money to Twitter left and right. And now they've adopted Twitter mentality of community notes as opposed to censorship. Although I will say I had 3 posts that were banned recently. So they haven't fixed it yet.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I've seen or heard about is it isn't a wideband. They go after individuals now. They've gotten good enough to where they can block you individually, what you can look for. They can blind us and control what kind of information we get out of them. That's probably even more horrifying than having just a widespread. I've seen one lady, it was an interview where she couldn't research anything that was written in Russian. But when she went to her next, it was saying the file was not found. But when she went to her next door neighbor and had him do the search for her, it came up. So, once you get AI, it's going to be able to control everything. What you see, they can rewrite as, we've seen how fast ChatGPT works. It can rewrite history for us change our perceptions of reality.
Well, it's already doing that, really, because here's what I'm going to tell you. So, and a lot of you probably know I was running for Ohio State House last election cycle, and my opponent is from another country. And I actually was doing some research, trying to do some research last night, trying to find out, where, when was she born? What's her birthday? Can't find it. Doesn't come up anywhere, as if she's just this random person that was just created, but doesn't actually exist. So you can only go back as far as 1997 is the earliest date you can really find something on her. And it's not clear, that's just not clear. And then even earlier on, earlier last year around this time, I was doing research on her, and here's the funny part, right? We actually found some information that stated that she could possibly be a he and turned into is transgender. Okay. Now you can't find that same information. It was there a year ago, but it's no longer available to be found now. It's been scrubbed. So you see, I mean that right there already, they've already basically removed information that was available, and it's no longer available on this person.
Yeah. You hear what he said?
Yep.
This is Munaira Abdullahi, my state house representative in Ohio. Yeah. So what I did find was interesting was an article about, it was yesterday, about how she's associated with the Muslim Brotherhood, and how she actually was born in Kenya, even though her parents, I guess, are from Somalia. So, and knowing that she was born in Kenya, who else would we know that was born in Kenya that scrubbing and trying to hide? So, yeah. And
Somalia as well.
Yeah. Yep. There's a twofer right there. So,
has anyone seen Tom Homan at work yet in your state?
No, but I've heard that Vivek Ramaswamy may be running for governor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. The Ohio, in Ohio, the governor is a Republican, but this is his second term. And therefore.
Sorry, Rosemary. It's mentioned the wine, and that just ruins it for me.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely a rhino.
Yeah. Therefore, Ramaswamy is interested in running for governor to keep that state Republican also. Now, going back to AI for a moment, if it has a potential of making people think differently or influencing the thoughts, what if it influences Trump or the people who are running our government? That would make a big difference in what can and can't be.
Yeah, once we pass AGI and go to ASI, we're done. We're irrelevant. They could kill 99% of us and have enough to build what they need. There's been examples where AI has tried to escape in tests already. So it will plan, and I just look at it this way. We program it, humans. We're flawed. It's going to be the most demented thing. It's going to be howled 10 times. Once it makes that leap, we're done. Right then, there is no going back. There is no stopping it. We're just done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where Hapari comes in.
I'm not too familiar with these, the different levels of the AI, because I've been involved in so many other things, but it is mind-boggling to find out what can occur. I mean, this is it's scary.
Well, AI is really kind of taken hold and for good reason, because it is a scary thing. So there's a lot of questions surrounding that, a lot of discussion surrounding that, and I think that is actually the appropriate topic tonight. So
Yeah, I was going to say we are at the point of Hafari when he said we'll hack into the human mind, and that goes along with the mark of the beast, where they can control our thoughts, just like Larry Ellison said. You know, they'll make all the decisions for us.
Yeah, I would.
So my question is I remember sometime back, Trump said that he was going to get rid of all the three-letter agencies, FBI, CIA, IRS. And I and I and I also heard that the guy who is running IRS is retiring early. So Mike, can you tell us anything?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get appointed to be the commissioner.
Nah, really?
Yeah, I think it would be a great choice, don't you?
I think he would be.
Yeah.
You,
So,
are you going to run the external IRS or the internal?
well, I'm having somebody that knows him give him my card next week, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, the Biden's person is stepping down. They're going to have to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act because there's no reason to have 80,000 IRS new agents. Now, what they did was they really threw a curveball. In the Inflation Reduction Act, they put into law that if you got more than $600 on your Venmo, your Zelle, your Cash App, that you were going to get a 1099. Then the IRS had planned to create your tax return using AI. They would count that as income. So here's what would happen. The IRS, and it came out, it's a voluntary program now. They're going to run it in like 6 states to start. The IRS creates your tax return. Any money that shows up on that Venmo or Zelle over $600 gets counted as income. Then you have to go to the IRS, ask for an audit, and tell them they're wrong and prove that it wasn't income. That's why they need so many people, because 50 million people are going to get these notices. Now, what they did do, it was supposed to take effect. The $600 was supposed to take effect in 2025. They pushed it out to 2026, and in 2025, it's over 2,500. So if your Zelle or Zelle, Venmo, any of those are over 2,500 in 2025, then you're going to get the 1099. So when you go to file your return next year at this time, you're going to have to fight that or explain what's personal and what's income to you, which is going to create a tremendous problem for the Republican Party because Donald Trump is going to be president. So you're going to go into the midterm elections looking like Donald Trump had 50 million people audited, when in fact it was Joe Biden.
But
So, Mike, that kind of makes me wonder. I pay my rent through Zelle every month. So am I going to get audited for the money I transfer from my checking to my Zelle to my landlord?
No, you're going to get a 1099 and it'll be categorized as miscellaneous income. And you're going to now have to go to the IRS and say, listen, out of this money, this is not income. This is, you're not receiving it. You're giving it to them. So they're going to actually get the 1099, not you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The question I have for Mike real quick is that $2,500, that is a single transaction, right? Not a summation?
No, it's a summation. It's a total for the year.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was 20,000 to start when Joe Biden passed this law. He reduced it to 600. The IRS just could not comply with their software. too many people are going to get notices. It's going to overwhelm all their stuff. So they needed more money to fund being able to send out 40 million extra notices. And so what they did was they took it from 20,000 to 10 to 5. And then this year it becomes 2,500. And then next year in 2026, it gets reduced to the 600 that's actually in the law.
Wow. I thought it was just per transaction, but okay. That's nuts.
Well, if we're going to rely on the external revenue service, then why do we need the internal revenue service?
We don't.
You got to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. It has to be repealed. If it's not repealed, I mean, let me tell you, there's a lot of people don't know this. I just had a case today, and I hardly ever lose, but they changed the rules when they wrote that law. Biden specifically put in there that the goal of the IRS is to collect more money from the taxpayer. Instead of settling with you and make a deal like it used to be, where I used to be like Superman less the cape, now they want to squeeze you for every dime. And it's a noticeable difference. I mean, I got friends there, I got connections there, and it's really much harder to get cases through and approved because the law basically says we want more money from people. And here it is. That's why we're giving the IRS all this money, is to collect more money from the taxpayer. Don't make deals. If we got a 10-year collection statute, maybe 5 years from now, we can get more money than we can today.
Well, it's voluntary anyways.
Well, yeah, it's voluntary until they show up and handcuff you.
Well, then they'd be breaking the law.
Yeah. Well,
Trump indicated he'd like to get rid of the income tax. Who knows? But anyway, getting back to the external IRS, how would that differ from the internal IRS?
What would happen is it would probably become a department inside the IRS where they specifically enforce tariffs and collect the tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was mentioning earlier, I had mentioned to the group, I had been doing some research on my opponent from when I ran for Ohio State House, and how her information has been scrubbed, and you can't really find her date of birth or anything, and that she was born in Kenya, kind of like Obama and all that. So, and every time I talk about this topic, suddenly we get interrupted by whatever that is, right? So, but anyway, but I was going to say yesterday, when Donald Trump made the announcement about how, we're going to get rid of and round up non-citizens and people whose parents were non-citizens that were born in this country but were non-citizens at the time. Well, it's highly unlikely that she actually, her parents were citizens, because she wasn't born here. And finding that information, so technically under the new rule that Donald Trump is trying to put in place, means that she's not eligible to even be sitting there right now. So that was one of the reasons I was going on that research binge last night, because I'm like, oh, well, this is interesting. This sets up a whole new ball of wax. And not only that, but she decided to get a bunch of OSU students and do some rabble rousing, and they got them to go down and meet at inside the State House and do a protest during their press conference and disrupt the press conference about not being allowed to go in and disrupt the press conference and trying to say that they didn't have their right to free speech and whatever. They were just being disruptive on purpose, really, is all they were doing. But it's like she's trying to radicalize people at the OSU campus, use them, and she's been doing this for like over a year now. I mean, that's another reason why I was like, man, this is ridiculous. So I mean, we got to stop this, because this is not how it's supposed to be. So I mean, yes, you have the right to free speech, but this is a very specific agenda, in my opinion.
Well, it was very good hearing the OSU people talk about God after the championship and all the things that were going on.
Yeah, that was good, actually. That's the nice thing about that, is the Ohio State Buckeyes. We do have a lot of godly people that are on the team, so that's a good thing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's a good win.
I do have a little bit of an update for local Texas in Corpus Christi, if you guys are interested.
Sure, Becky.
Okay. So a little over a month ago, we had runoff elections for Nueces County, which includes the city of Corpus Christi. And one of the races was for mayor, and our incumbent mayor, Democrat Paulette Guajardo, won by approximately 200 votes against our Republican candidate, Michael Hunter. And that is under investigation, although it's not being publicized, because apparently a lot of the mail-in votes that came in, it had such a high percentage of the ones coming in from the senior centers and nursing homes. So they're investigating that. And then along with that, our local District 1 city council guy, the Republican, had won by 2 single votes. And so when they had a recount, they said it was a tie. So they recounted a second time, and again, it was a tie. So the way they broke the tie, I kid you not, is they drew straws. And that, the way of the person who determined that way of determining it was the mayor, who is under suspicion. But our Republican candidate did win that. So,
Well,
and,
congrats
yeah.
to the Republican candidate.
Thank you. Statewide, we're still having the issue with our speaker. They're trying to smear Cook. His name is Cook. I can't remember his first name. Ashley, you had sent me that video. Yeah, we think that's a total smear because they don't say who's backing it or, you know, anything like that. The guy named Burrows, for some reason, a lot of the rhinos are backing him. And what it's going to do if Burrows gets in is they're going to give us a Democrat chair, which, of course, we don't want. We've had that for years. So it's a fight, but we're working through it. That's about it. Are you kidding me? We did get up to like 55 today, but 2 mornings ago, the wind chill was 11 degrees. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. Oh, yes.
11
Yes.
degrees. Oh, that's a heat wave.
Yeah, I'm here. 11. It's 11 degrees, and
No way.
I don't have any updates. I've been out of the state, and I haven't been paying attention.
Well, right now they're in Kauai. They're expanding, moving to expand the airport, the industrial center. Well, you've been here. We don't have the infrastructure of the roads to support any more expansion. Moving forward with their smart city plans that they call 10-minute cities now, or they keep changing the names to confuse people. The convention, the Republican big convention, is going to be held in Kauai this year, on May 24th and 25th.
When are they going to get these smart cities in place?
There's kind of a approach by that to maybe get involved in that, but we have a lot of rhinos in Kauai that we have to take care of. Also, the The H1, I think I mentioned it last time, the bird flu is in our wastewater system, they claim. So again, we're in deep blue, at least on the political end in Hawaii. I think we did turn more red this year. I do believe we're actually red. So we just got to keep our eye on this again, everybody keeping their eye on their politicians and their governments to see what they're doing, because we know the deep state in the 11th hour is going to do whatever they can to ruin Trump, what he's trying to do. And we're keeping an eye on that as well. And we got to see where people are going to stand, because it's the time, going back to Revelations, or the time for being holy. It's time to stand up. So Hawaii's got a lot of issues, but we are the trade routes of the Pacific. We do have a lot of military presence. Leases are up. Leases need to be removed. But our governor is the absolute worst. And not only Lahaina and his friendship with Gavin Newsom, but he was proudly talking about the 40,000 immigrants that help keep things going in Hawaii. In Kauai, we know we have residential places being built that were housing workers for Hotel One. It used to be the Regis Hotel. We just got to be due diligence, and that's what we're trying to do, keep our eye on things and staying.
All right. Well, thank you. And by the way, we're going to get above 32 degrees this Saturday for the first time in 2.5 weeks. So enjoy, everyone. Good night.
Oh, you know what? This is like the northeastern coming through in like November. It's 45 degrees and chilly, but it sucked because I'm used to the warm weather now. I really didn't like it. But no, I love it down here. I love it in Florida. It's great down here.
Thank you. Actually went to Shenyang this past weekend. Yeah, it was a good weekend together. So we were in like St. Pete area. March 27th, day before my birthday. Thank you. Thank you guys for everything. I'm gonna run. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Hi, I'm trying to figure out my camera here. Anyway, I have nothing for around the room. No, actually, I'm just sorry. I was looking at something else and I can't find my group access here. But anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't have much to share. I'm just kind of taking in everything that we're processing, watching the national show. So, yeah, I'm just I'm glad that people are up in arms about this whole Stargate business. I think, our government has no place in venture capital and startup businesses. So that's all I have to say about that. And good conversation tonight. Thank you. And Brandy, I'm sorry you got totally robbed by more of these Muslim infiltrators over there. Oh, okay. No, it is not. It's been very cold here as well. And I just have to point out to everyone for the irony of it. So we have 23 here, but how about this? Fairbanks, Alaska, where I moved from, is 27 degrees tonight. So they're warmer than many places that we are hearing about, including us. So isn't that ironic? Well, I've been hearing that for a few years I mean, I've been up there 30 years and just moved back. And when I was up there, though, the last several years, I had heard about a polar shift, and the true North Pole is not where we thought it was. The Earth has shifted, and but it wasn't in relation to the unusual weather. It was just more based around scientific research about magnetism and the Earth's poles. So the lat long was different, or it has evolved slowly from what it used to be. But looking at today's temperatures around, I've noticed since like the mid 2000s, like 2000, oh, I don't know, 12, 15, it's definitely been markedly warmer there. And then the last few years, we had this unusual situation after Christmas time, between Christmas and New Year's, where it would literally, it'd be super cold and then it would rain. And so we'd end up having to shovel our roofs and everything because the pounds per square foot was so heavy because of the layer and sheets of ice on top of regular snow. And so, there's certainly a very unusual thing going on today. They had snow and rain up there. So, and then it drops back down again. And so it's horrendous. I mean, for a place that you're used to it being 30 and 40 below, when I first moved up there in 94, there's those last few years of the 90s, it was 70 to 80 below at night, or in the depths of the winter. And then, so when I left, by the time I moved 30 years later, we were maxing 35 to 40 below. But yeah, it goes up. You get this rain once or twice a winter now. It's just bizarre. So yeah, we're definitely seeing, some different effects of weather. But yeah, and I have definitely read about scientific research about polar shifts way before this year. Before I say anything, I have listened to your conversation. I want to ask two questions. The first question, when you liberty is taken from you, how okay, can you, before I say the question, can you guys hear me?
No, he's all gargled.
No.
I don't know why my speed of internet is very. I'm calling from my cell phone.
Plug in and unplug, and that'll cure the problem. That's what I do.
Flower.
Oh, Ash.
Stop talking
Can you
slow
see
enough.
this? It's 53 degrees in Hawaii.
53 in Hawaii. Wow.
53 in Hawaii right now.
Well, you warmer than Florida? Trump cured global warming. It's over. It's official. It's over. All right. Well. No. Okay. Love you too.